In this session, we will discuss the new CLAT pattern that is released by the CLAT Consortium last year in November, and what is the strategy to go about solving that paper, and we'll scrutinize each and every section in this session and how to go about solving those. Now, first we come to the modalities of the new sample paper or the new CLAT pattern that is released last year. So earlier we used to have 200 questions, one question, 1 mark. Now from this time we have 150 questions, each carrying 1 mark. And the negative marking remains the same, 0.25 negative mark for every incorrect answer. Right? The number of questions have been reduced and the time that was earlier given, which was 2 hours, remains the same, which is a good news. However, there is a lot to read this time. All the questions will be asked in form of passages. Be it any section, all the questions are in the form of long passages which may exceed 300 and maybe up to 450 words. And all the questions will be asked in that manner. So let's go section by section and understand as to what is the strategy that we should adopt for solving these questions. Now let's first move to the English language section. This is one of the most dreaded section, as I have known from the recent controversy that was made with respect to the difficulty level of the English questions that were being asked and only one kind of question that were being given in the question paper. But that is what we have. We have to deal with it and we have to understand as to how to deal with it now. So English comprehension passages, generally when they are written, they always have a main point, the theme or the point behind which the writer is trying to write that entire piece, right? While we solve these passages, we need to understand that main point. Some of the other really important things that can be noted here is when paragraphs are changing in the passages, there is a high possibility that the speaker may also change. So there will be certain people or certain quotes in the passage which will be supporting the main theme or the main point that is given in the passage. Whereas there could be certain writers or certain places which would refute it, basically not support it and go against it. We need to find that because these are the kind of questions that will be eventually asked to us. Now, we may be asked questions based on facts which will be very basic, which will be given in the passage, and we just need to find that fact out. That is going to be plain and simple. We may be asked questions on basic grammar. That is also pretty simple. We may be asked certain questions where we may be expected to read between the lines, or vocabulary questions wherein meaning of certain words are asked. That is where major problem arises for most of us when we solve the English language passages, right? So as I already told you, look at the main theme, try and explain it to yourself, and also look at the points that either refute that point or support that point. That will make it really easy, and it will be easier for you to answer most of the questions. With respect to the vocabulary part, if any word meaning or synonym or antonym is asked, right, in those questions you need to be mindful of the fact as to whether the meaning is being asked with respect to the passage or general. For example, there could be a word, say grave. Now, grave means serious, but grave also means a place where dead bodies are buried, right? So, in the context of the passage, whatever meaning is asked is really important for us to understand and then answer accordingly. So, to deal with it, first strategy is to read the passage really carefully and understand it. Second, really important point to keep in mind is while you read the question and the 4 options that are given to you, make sure that you read all the options that are given to you. For example, you might feel that the answer to this question is option A, and because of that you miss option B, C and D because you feel that A is the most appropriate answer. Now that is where most of the students make mistakes. We need to understand this and read each and every option to finally find out what is the most appropriate answer to a particular question. Now, with respect to the preparation in the English language section, do as many reading comprehension passages as you can. Find any book, I mean good books. You can use books like Renan Martin and so on, and do those passages really carefully and try to understand as to what kind of questions are generally asked in passages. You can also try solving the 2011 CLAT paper. In 2011 CLAT paper, all the questions in the English section were asked in the form of passages itself. So that may be really helpful to you as well. Now, if we move to the next section, which is the current affairs section. Earlier, we used to be asked 50 questions in the current affairs section, and all those 50 questions used to be from here and there, from different arena of general knowledge that we should generally know. Now, here they have simplified it for us. They have made it into passages again. So we will be given a passage with respect to a particular current affair. Current affair here means anything that has happened either this year or last year would be a current affair. For CLAT 2020 aspirants, anything that has happened in 2019 or 2020 is going to be a current affair and may be expected in this paper. So they may ask you questions related to certain personalities that were in question or in news. For example, a question may be asked on a sports personality, say MS Dhoni's retirement. Now, they won't stop here. So, what we have to do here this time is we just do not have to mug up all the answers. So, earlier, what we used to do was we used to go to certain websites, note down all the questions or all the facts that were given on those websites, and probably read it just before the exam and just do well in the exam. That won't work this time. Instead of reading, we need to start studying it properly. That is why I'll always tell my students to study general knowledge and current affairs section, particularly in small groups of 3 or 4 people. If you do that and divide topics amongst yourself, it becomes very easy to have a pool of questions in the end to study from, and it covers a lot that an individual cannot himself cover. So it will help you a lot if you study GK or current affairs section in groups. Now you may be asked question on certain current events and with historical perspective. For example, you may be asked a question on the recent Amphan cyclone. So Amphan cyclone was one of the cyclones that came on the eastern side of India in the states of Orissa and West Bengal mostly. Now they may ask you as to what was the most devastating cyclone that came in that area in any year. So in 1998 there was a cyclone which was more devastating than Amphan. So such questions are expected. There may be a question on COVID-19 pandemic. A question with respect to the historical perspective could be that was there any previous disease that was regarded as a pandemic by the World Health Organization, and if yes, what was it? So these are the kind of questions that we need to apply our mind to. So whenever you read a fact and it's a current affair related to a current affair, always apply your mind and try to understand as to what other questions can be asked from this particular fact. Another really important thing to note is the legal improvements that has happened currently, that is last year or this year, are really important. For example, any landmark judgment that has come, that is really important for us to understand. Any important judgment is really important from the perspective of this year's CLAT and for next year also. So this pattern is going to be followed now every year. So this approach is really important to be understood while dealing with this current affairs section. So there will be maximum 6 to 7 passages. So we are lucky that if we read properly and prepare accordingly, then we'll definitely know answers to these all the passages, and at least we'll know something about these passages, because since there are 5 or 6 questions asked from each passage, they obviously will not expect you to know each and everything about what has happened in the past 1.5 years. So obviously nobody is going to ask you a question on any memorandum of understanding that Narendra Modi signed with any country, because obviously nobody can make 5 or 6 questions which are exam worthy from a memorandum of understanding, and nobody expects you to know that. So that sufficiently narrows down our scope, and we need to understand as to what kind of questions may be asked to us.